This book made me want to unplug every single device in my house.
I know.
Everything out the wall. Absolutely not.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back for another episode of the Lone Limit Podcast. I'm your host, Chelsie. This is your host, Jay.
Hey.
And if you're new here, welcome. This is going to be an interesting episode to drop in on, so be sure to go check out some of the other ones, because this one is not like the other.
Okay.
I mean, I just feel like, you never know when we're going to get new listeners, new watchers. I don't really want to set the bar that we out here reading intellectual books that are deep and full of metaphors and symbolism.
We're
we
smarticles.
be reading about demons hunching. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, we're smarticles. We have multi dimensions. All right, we read the gamut of books.
Am I multifaceted? Yes. Is that really where this podcast be sometimes? Not really.
Nah. Yeah.
No. So, I just want to make sure we're open and honest before we dive into the chaos of today.
It's very interesting. I'm actually very intrigued to see like how our breakdown and review is gonna be, because I literally finished the book and I was like, I wonder if it's gonna feel like we're in class.
I make no promises of what's about to happen. All right. So I'm back on the internet, y'all. That's the easiest way to explain it.
The internet is a
I
trap.
have to do these things.
Why did you get caught up again?
I have to do these things for y'all. I want you to remember I sacrifice for you guys.
That's actually valid, because Chelsie has to keep y'all informed. I don't know what's going on.
There's a new book that came out, right? Called Blood Moon by Brittany S. Lewis. I have it. I bought it. I bought the special edition with the nice, beautiful edges, everything.
Okay.
It's a Black woman who wrote this book. She was really inspired by Vampire Diaries, and she really didn't like how Bonnie the Witch was treated in it, and so she wrote her own kind of fantasy novel, if you will.
That was Kat Graham's character, right?
Yes, the only Black person on the show.
Really? Wait, really?
If I'm not mistaken, there might have been 2 other Black people in the 7 seasons of the show.
So wait, I thought the originals was a spinoff of the Vampire Diaries. Is that now?
Okay, so in that case, there's 4 Black people.
Because I just know the guy that was the
Marcel.
Yeah, and so I didn't watch the show, but my cousin was very, very into it. So I saw episodes here and there, and it was good, but it just, y'all know I'm not big on vampires and stuff. So
this is beside the point, anyway. We have gone off already. We didn't even make it that far into the episode.
Okay, gotcha.
So she wrote the book. It released, and then the internet started saying that she plagiarized her book. Plagiarized. I don't know why I struggled with that word.
Okay. No, because I need to hear what they're I need to hear why they think that.
The internet tried to say that because her book is a girl moves to a small town and finds werewolves and vampires, it's plagiarized.
See, this is why I was making the faces I was making. That's exactly why I was making the faces I was making, because I needed to know what they thought was the plagiarism part.
Wait, hold on. We're not done yet. Hold on.
Okay.
Brittany clapped back and was like, first off, she didn't move to that town. She's from that town. Second of all, that's not plagiarism. There's a difference between plagiarism and similarities / tropes.
Or inspiration.
Right. So the question I want to pose to you is, where is that line of inspiration, similar tropes, and straight up plagiarism?
Okay. So I grew up old school. We didn't have these chat GPTs. Google was discovered in my lifetime, started in my lifetime, stuff like that. So I was old school, dictionary, go to the dictionary type thing. when I was at the time in school doing essays, we had Google and things like that. I grew up where plagiarism is when you copy and paste, right? And then there's a little bit of wiggle room where you can pull directly from as long as you give credit. And then there's also where personally I think this is kind of more plagiaristic and they just let it slide, where you see it, you read it, and just like scramble up the words and say it the same way in a different way. So from like a writer perspective, I think it's plagiarism if it's something where it's like it's the exact same character names, it's the exact same location, and there's no sort of like this is based off of this with credit and maybe some sort of revenue going back to the original creator. Now, if you watch, like in this case, we'll say The Vampire Diaries. If you watch The Vampire Diaries and you were like, oh, that's a story I want to tell, I don't feel like it was told, I don't think it's plagiaristic for you to write what you think that story is, inspired by just, for me, that's just inspiration. I don't really consider that plagiarism. I haven't read the book, I also haven't really watched the show, so I can't really speak to how similar those elements are. But I think it's a big distinction between plagiarism and inspired by, and then you running with your own story that was based off of the foundation of something else. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, definitely. Okay. I think the internet does a really shitty job. You can leave that curse word in as well. At knowing the difference between, oh, that's a book trope that multiple authors use, and actual plagiarism. Also, the internet is vast, y'all. Just because you read a book doesn't mean this author read a book. They might not have any idea that book existed and thought their idea was original, okay? Yeah. Like, I feel like there's a difference between using I went back to a small town trope, I'm visiting my hometown in a small town trope nonsense, versus literally ripping off an entire television show.
I agree. I think there are differences and I think there are nuances. And I perfectly love how you said that, like, a creator may not have seen or watched something and then they created something thinking it's original and it like kind of already exists. In those cases, I actually think that it should literally just be, as long as you can prove that you didn't, whatever, then I think you're in the clear. Like, yes, it's very similar and that kind of sucks, like from a consumer point of view. But I feel like if you guys both originally in your mind created something and it just turns out in the end they're very similar, I don't think there's any fault there. I think that the creative minds is kind of just going in that sense. So I have been on the creative side of these things, like in these meetings and things like that. And I think it's very funny because I think having a sounding board of who and what has had exposure to different things is very interesting to hear in these type of rooms. So I will say this, like I was in a development meeting and we were talking about like, ooh, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And it was funny because different people were like, oh, that's a great idea, but that's this movie. Like, oh, that's a great idea, but that's this book. Like, we were distinctly like, oh, this is a great idea. Like, it was original to that person in the moment who hadn't experienced that other piece of work. And then someone else would just be like, oh, that is a great idea, but it already exists. And so I think at some point, especially we're so far into our society at this point, they say there's nothing new under the sun. I think there's going to be some things that are recycled, like, organically. Right. I think we're just in that moment where, not to say like there's no new original ideas, I think that there are, but I think like you're saying, into certain tropes, things are going to be, you're going to see them come back again. In my personal opinion, I feel like what sets a piece of work apart is like that specific author, their writing style, their voice, the life they breathe into the character and the situation they breathe into the plot. That's what makes it original and distinctive, even if it does have a lot of similarities with other similar type tropes and works.
Right. I just want people who jump on these bandwagons or may see these threads of like, oh, don't read this author because they plagiarize. Do your own research before you make that decision to follow that bandwagon. Because like
plagiarism is a huge like accusation too. Like that's not like run of the mill.
Well, the thing also is like I've even done it myself where, like, personally, the thought of having to research an author before I buy a book is exhausting.
It's very annoying. Yes, I agree.
Right. And so, you know, you see these threads of people talking about, like, oh, don't read this author because this is the reason why. Like, they're this thing. And so then you're like, oh, I can't read that author. But then if you go and read any news article about that author, that topic has been addressed. It's been debunked. And now we're just spreading misinformation. Yeah. So I'm just imploring y'all out there to do your own research before you start Xing people off of your TBR list. I don't know why I forgot words. I forgot how to speak.
And I will also say this. I'm one of those few people where I also say, like, sometimes time and space is also, like, okay. And I say that in terms of, like, we'll use just an author in this. Let's say an author said or did something 5 years ago. I'm also one of those few people where I believe that if this person has learned and grown and evolved as an individual and in their art and in their writing, I think that there can be space for them to be welcomed back. Like, I know that's not the most popular opinion, and I understand that, but I'm just the kind of person where I'm like, I would hate to be judged by something that I thought 2 years ago, and I'm like a completely different person in terms of, like, I've done the work to learn and grow and stuff like that. So I'm also one of those that I know that's not popular, but I'm also one of those people who are like, if you did something or said something or whatever, now check it out. If that is in your heart and that's who you are, stand on that. Then just know I am not going to be your audience. But I think if you believe that, then did the work, learned, whatever, I'm one of those people where I'm like, I'm here. I'm okay to see the reiteration of what you are as a person and how that breathes into your new work. Mm-hmm. You're like, nope.
That's not where my brain was at. My brain was just trying to re-download words. Okay. I don't know what has happened this week, but words don't exist in my brain. So I'm really trying hard for y'all.
That goes into the really book we read, so.
This is really awkward for the situation we are in where we're filming a podcast and I don't know words. But we gonna keep it going. Mm-hmm. Jay? Mm-hmm. The internet
is a trap.
Not even. They've gone too far. They've gone too far once again. Because this is not the first time, it won't be the last time. So, a poor author was shunned off the internet.
I'm sorry, it's not funny, but I don't. Why do you shun?
Like, low-key it is, but it isn't.
I think your word choice just cracked me up. Okay, wait, I'm listening.
There was a conversation that was had on the internet about Hunger Games and the love triangle that is Katniss, Gale, and Peeta. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Now, everybody who's read the book or watched the movies knows that Katniss ends up with Peeta. Mm-hmm. This author made a comment about how she would have preferred Katniss ended up with Gale. Mm-hmm. The internet attacked her so bad she deactivated her social media.
For an opinion?
Check this out. Not only was it an opinion, it was an opinion about a fictional love triangle.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Now, thankfully, I've got home training, so I was not part of that mob. Mm-hmm. But at what point am I allowed to start throwing hands at people for acting a fool on the internet?
I feel like we're already past that point. Like, some people need to square up in real life, for real.
Like, you cannot blow up an author's comment section, her DMs, all of it. All because she said one small sentence about fictional characters that have no control over anything in our real lives. If y'all don't go outside and touch some grass,
Also, I just feel like that'd be like a really good discussion. Like I'm just trying to figure out like how did that turn into basically cyberbullying to the point of her removing herself from assuming her own mental health, which I absolutely commend the author for creating that boundary for herself.
Right.
But I also am like, I feel bad for the author because if you're an author, I'm assuming you also like to sell, and social media is its own marketing and stuff like that. That's what it's an opinion, y'all. Like it's an opinion. Come on now.
So,
if y'all got something to beef with me, go ahead. I'll give you a time and place. Pull up. We can talk it out.
So my real question, because that was just a nonsense question, is do we have too much access to authors in this day and age? Because both of us grew up in an era of like an author popped out of their little hiding hole and said, hey, I put out a new book. I'm on a press tour. I'm on Good Morning America. And then disappeared back to that cave to give us another one.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I be posting stuff, tagging the authors in it. And then they're in my DMs.
Yeah.
Replying. And I'm like, how do you know who I am?
Okay.
So while I appreciate that, I do feel like people are starting to take it for granted. And we're going to go back to a time where, like, you only saw an author when they had a book to drop and they got to live their life completely unbothered.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have too much access to authors? This is a tough one for me because...
No. Keep answering while I try and find my chapstick.
This is a tough one for me because I distinctly remember the first time, not just like any author, but like legitimately my favorite author responded to me on social media. And I remember I was like, I needed a whole moment. And it wasn't just like a one response. Like she responded, I responded back, and we were having a conversation. And I remember like calling my mom and be like, Mom, you remember this author I love? Because I'm such a but it's interesting to say, like, do we have too much access to authors? Okay. I'm one of those people where I firmly believe that everyone has a job, and sometimes your job is just cooler than other jobs, but it doesn't negate the fact that you're just a person with a cool job.
Right.
I say that to say, I think that us having access to authors is a beautiful thing that I greatly enjoy. At the same time, I have seen, we continually see where there's a boundary that I think is pushed beyond some authors' comforts, honestly, and they've expressed that privately. Like, I haven't seen them all.
Honestly, it's beyond my comfort. I be watching from the sidelines going, bro, if you don't back up.
Yeah. And I think that's more on individual people, but if a collective of individuals continue to you know, be disrespectful to those boundaries, it becomes a larger issue. So I don't think we have too much access to authors. I generally love that we have these new ways that didn't exist when I was younger, but I think that people are abusing them, and I think that is slightly different. I don't think we have too much access to them. If they want to share their personality with us because they feel like, oh, you love my writing, that came from the creativity of myself, maybe you love my personality as well. And I generally love seeing the personality, the hobbies of some of my favorite authors, and I love that they're okay with sharing that with us. But at the same time, I think like, I know for myself personally, I actively try not to bug people when they are not within an official capacity. So like, because I have an author on Instagram, because we have exchanged words about their book or met in person, whatever, that's gorgeous, I'm not going to be like, hey, so what oven temperature is this? Like, I don't, like, we're not, like, there's a level of, like, if I want to ask you about your book, fine. I'm not going to be
That's
like.
That's actually a lie, Jay. You did do that.
Wait, when did I do that? To be fair, I actually do know a couple people personally, so I'm going to say there was probably an anomaly. But
when we were in Denver at the readers retreat, remember we were at the restaurant and we saw the drink at the table next to us and we were like, ooh, what drink is that?
To be fair, I was hungry, had no idea who they were, ended up meeting them in author capacity, lovely people, and now connected. But at the moment, I was just hungry.
We were so delirious, guys. All right. If
All
we
the
broke that
traveling,
rule
so many
then,
things.
it was purely out of it. We had a full travel day and then had to socialize, and we just wanted a beverage.
And some food. I was so hungry. Okay, anyway. But so I don't think we have too much access, but I think people are abusing the access that we have. And I agree with you. I think that's going to be a point where authors go, you know what? I'm going back in my hidey hole. Like, I'm not going to say that all authors are introverted. I don't know that to be true. I'm sure there's a percentage of them, but I think there's going to become a point where the negative element of it, or the stress of it, and the mental load of being accessible may not be worth it, may be detrimental to their creativity, and they may start restricting access again. I would love that for them if they feel like that's what they need to do, and I'll support that. But I hate that as a reader, because I do love this new age where you can message a author and they respond, or you can send a meme and be like, I thought of this character in your book, and they'd be like, oh, I love that too. Like, I love this era that we're in with it, but I think people are being disrespectful with it. And we're talking about social media, but I also say this in person.
Yeah.
We've done a couple of book festivals like in the past year, and I remember I forgot which one we were at, but I remember I told you, and I was like, I hate that they keep pulling this author aside when they weren't in an official capacity in that moment. Like, the author was just trying to go back to their room.
It was Kennedy Ryan, and people wouldn't even let that poor woman get
They
on
wouldn't even let
elevator.
her walk down the hall. And I'm like,
She
girl, I
couldn't
know
get to
y'all
the
are fans.
bathroom.
I know y'all are fans, but like, y'all gotta let her breathe. Like, just let her breathe. Like, y'all know me, I'm a big Jasmine Guillory fan. She walked past me. And this is actually after we'd had like a conversation, like when I did a signing with her, and I just turned to Chelsie and I just like grinned, and she was like, it's okay. And I'm just like, it's okay to appreciate them, but there's also a moment of like, just let them have their space. They're not in an official capacity all the time. Just let them be humans.
You know, there's one author that I wish was still alive so that I could bug him with a couple of questions though. And that's George Orwell, the author of today's book, 1984.
Yep.
I want to start my rant, but I know I have to do this in my official capacity. So
I kind of want to hear your questions, but okay, go ahead. Do what you gotta do.
No, because listen, I will lose people in the anger.
Oh.
All right. So if you haven't figured it out, today's book is 1984 by George Orwell.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very well-known classic that has been challenged and banned throughout its lifetime. I can do this. Okay. In all fairness, guys, before we get started today, this was my second time reading this book.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Jay realizes that, but I have already read this in high school and annotated the hell out of it when I read it in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then I somehow ended up annotating it again this time around.
See, when I saw your story with like the little like post-its, and I was like, oh, she's going in.
Yo, George was dropping some bars in there though.
Oh, my quote list is like
Yeah.
Yeah.
It tells the story of Winston, a man who lives a very interesting life. Let's just get into it.
Winston irritated me.
Damn. It's a 3-part book. It's actually really nice the way he broke it up into 3 parts.
Mm-hmm.
The first part centers around just getting to know Winston and his life. Winston lives in a very interesting world. It's post a major war. You're not quite sure which one it is because Winston has no clue what year it is.
Yeah, which I thought was so interesting.
It's so genius on a takeover dictatorship type of life that he lives in. Winston's been around for a while and he's made to believe it's 1984, but he doesn't quite think that's the timeline they're really in because it's been so long.
Mm-hmm.
And Winston is under the regime of Big Brother. Big Brother took over and now controls your thoughts, your movements, your day, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he lives in, I don't know if you remember, Oceania?
Oceana.
Oceana.
Yeah.
I don't know how I just pulled that one out, guys. I just
It
want to
was
let y'all know
Oceana,
I was not confident at all.
Eurasia,
I got the rest
and
of them,
East
though.
Asia. Yeah.
Yes. So Oceana is always at war with someone. But strangely, that information is always changing, and it's actually Winston's job with a whole bunch of other people to constantly rewrite news articles and any sort of information so that it fits within the scheme of which Big Brother is putting out there.
Yes.
And that's kind of where we meet him, is like he's in this phase of doing his job, going through the daily routines, but Winston has decided he's not going to follow the rules that were set forth by this regime anymore. And he has gone into like a black market and gotten a diary. And now he has hidden himself in his home and he is starting to write, which means he has free thought, which goes against everything Big Brother has established.
Yes. And I'll say this. Like you're saying, like starting a diary was like such a form of rebellion. The telescreen, what was it? Did they call it a telescreen?
Yeah, it's a telescreen.
So the telescreen has microphones and anything it can see. And so he basically, I call it his little book nook, but he basically created like a little corner of his apartment.
He had a fort.
that the screen couldn't see, and that was the only place of like peace that he had in his own apartment, which was wild, you know. Also, I didn't even think that I'd make this connection so early in this episode. I thought it was very interesting that when we read Fahrenheit 451, that too had like a telescreen, like we're giving you information and you're receiving it, but we're telling you what we want you to know, kind of like yeah, okay, sorry.
It was crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so one of my favorite things is like George writes in the passages that he's actively writing in the diary. So you get to see what Winston's putting into the diary instead of just him being like, George is writing in his diary for like 3 hours, you know?
Oh, but you read it physically.
Oh, yeah. So you listened to it with your ears.
I did an audiobook, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was distinctive when he was writing, like the way that the narrator did it. But I think that's interesting that you could definitely tell what was the diary entry. Yeah, it was a little bit different from
Yeah. So I don't know if you can see that, but there'd be like little italicizes of where he was writing. But my favorite part, italicizes. Italic font. I have words, I promise. But like his first entry, there's no punctuation. It's just free flowing thought of just like, I saw a woman in the park.
Okay, I was just about to ask you that, because I was going to say, since you read it physically, did you get the same like just ramble of thought feeling that I did? Okay, I love that. And I too thought it was very distinctive that George made those differences, because his actual job, like you said, his job is, what is it called? A rectify something? Like he's a rectifier.
Girl, I don't know. You should be happy I know his name.
Like his job was to quote unquote rectify things, and he had to like speak officially with the New Speak Dictionary and all these things. He had to write so properly. And I kind of just love the distinction of like, in real life, we totally understand the difference of like how you write at work versus how you write on Instagram is like completely different speech patterns. And I love that we got to see the old school version of that. Because listen, especially when you kind of go old school, like Facebook, old posts, you get those random just thought dumps.
Listen, Facebook stopped telling me I was ignorant when I was in middle school. Okay, I don't need that reminder.
Right. And so, when they give you like this, I'm like, I did not need to hear how stupid I was in college, please.
Right.
And so it was just very interesting to hear the distinction of like, he can construct a sentence with all the purpose, whatever.
Yeah.
But then to hear when he's in his own time, like he said, the free thought,
when he's out of those confines, he just, like, and he's just
lets it out,
spewing it out.
Yeah. I actually really love that distinction.
Yes. And so we get to see the beginnings of it all. Not like the first steps, but like from the beginning of him having free thought, which is completely illegal, to then kind of going through life of being like, who can I trust? Who can I not trust? Do they already know? Because the thought of buying the diary alone is illegal. The fact that he has it, he's written in it. Like, he says, at this point, people don't even buy pens. It's a weird concept of, like, no one needs to write anymore. Like, that's not a thing.
And so even with the writing, even for his job, I thought it was very interesting that they write verbally. They use I forgot what the thing is called.
He talks into a microphone,
but
basically.
Essentially, yeah, they verbally say the things, and that's how they record things. Yeah. And I was just thinking in terms of, like, if you were to control a population, if you start to strip away and remove other ways of communication, other ways of documentation, you can, in a couple of generations time, you can be the only level of information. Yep. And that is in and of itself so powerful. So yeah, I thought it was very interesting how he was talking about, like, even because he wasn't even writing with a regular pen. He was using like the ink and like a quill, essentially. Yeah. And so he was saying that, like, he had to make sure he washed his fingers because having the ink on his fingers would be enough to be questioned.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so part 1 takes us through meeting Julia. At this point, she's just known as the girl with the dark hair. But she becomes a pivotal part in part 2. Mm-hmm. Hold on. You waiting. You waiting to tell me I'm wrong.
No, that wasn't it.
And we get introduced to this very menacing character named O'Brien, he works in the same building as Winston and is almost like a dark shadow over Winston's shoulder of, like, this intimidating man that he sees everywhere. And honestly, at this point, I was so hyped for part 2. I was so hyped. And then part 2 let me down. But we're going to get to that. What do you have to say about part 1?
Okay. So for me, the purpose of part 1 was mostly to build the world. And, like, it was, like, to build the world and to introduce you to, like, what their society was in modern times and what all the rules and stuff were. Something I thought was very interesting, which they did elaborate, I think in part 3, was some of the ministries. So they established the ministries. So there's 4 ministries. So you have the Ministry of Truth, and that covers news, entertainment, education, and fine arts. Why are you laughing at me? Because I wrote these down.
We don't need to break down the ministries.
I thought they were very distinctive and cool. Well, like, evil, but cool.
I don't think we need to. Listen, this podcast gonna be 3 hours long if we start breaking down the ministries, my dude.
Y'all can fast forward. I'm gonna go through the ministries because I'm gonna keep coming back to them. You have the Ministry of Peace, which is their responsibility was war. Ministry of Love, and their responsibility was law and order. And then the Ministry of Plenty, which was economics. And what I thought was interesting is that, so George Orwell has a quote, and he says, this is Winston's quote. He says, nothing is illegal since there are no longer any laws. And it was interesting that's a part of the society where everything is so governed, but it's like, that's the whole thing with thought crime. It kind of reminded me a little bit Minority Report, where it's like, they arrest you before you do anything. So there are no issues, quote unquote, because they just stop them before it happens. And yeah, it very, very, very intriguing to me, way to set up that society. Okay.
Is that all your thoughts on part 1? Can I move on to part 2 now? Because this is where things start to get a little crazy.
Other thing on part 1, the propaganda and desensitization. That's not how you say that.
I don't know where you're going with this thought to tell you if you're right or wrong.
The desensitizing. Sure. Mm-hmm. The way that they use that during, like, regular movies, I thought was interesting. Because it's like, the few times that they actually watched movies just for fun, there were still a lot of, like, propaganda elements in there that made you desensitized to, like, in my opinion, pretty traumatic things Like, they were written in great detail, and I was like, that's creepy.
Girl,
and
they have to sit down for 2 minutes a day and just hate on people.
Yo, the
propaganda was strong.
I actually don't have a problem with the hate report. I actually was rocking with the hate report. I was like, I would actually love to have a 2-minute report of all the haters.
Yeah, but if all of us magically got the same haters, I'm gonna start looking at people a little cray-cray.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, absolutely. But I just thought that was funny. Yeah.
So then we get to part 2.
One last thing about part 1, and then we can. I promise you.
You're
yes,
done.
no,
you're cut off.
No. I
you're
promise
cut
you. We
off
can move
like
on.
Winston and his gin addiction.
So one thing I thought was interesting, I was like, I feel like there's a instinctual hatred towards women. And I feel like that was like a learned trait. It was one of those things where like you want what you can't have, and because they were so taught and like operated not to have them, that I feel like the men then had such a repulsive reaction to women by just osmosis. I
think part of it is they've reduced them so much, and the fact that they can't have their own free thought, that you've essentially turned man back into cavemen. Like, we've turned the dial back, because all of the free flowing thought that would have gotten you to respect others and to see women as your equals, and that evolutionary sort of arc, that's all gone now.
Yeah.
Which is why in part 2, when we meet Julia, who love bombs him immediately, just sends him a note and says, "I love you." And I said, wow, that's crazy, because y'all ain't even, you can't even speak at lunch, but you love him?
The way he was like, I don't even know what your eyes look like. I was like, y'all.
But they decide to meet up, and there's this whole conversation about how she uses her body as like an act of rebellion, because that's what she's got. You don't procreate with someone that you love, you just do it to keep the population going.
Right. And so what is it called? The duty to the party.
Sure. You micro, I macro. That's how this works.
Yeah.
But part 2 is all about this love affair that he embarks on with Julia. And for the first time, he believes he has a person that he can share this thought with. And as somebody who has read this for the second time now, it was painfully obvious that that woman was still fully ingrained in the regime.
Really? Okay. Oh, okay. Let's talk through this. Okay.
There are so many times where he's like, oh, the bird was singing to us. The bird wasn't singing to us. The bird was just singing. It's like everything he said, she had to contradict. And it was like, towards the end of part 2, he finds essentially a textbook, which might have been a little bit crazy to you to listen to be like, what the hell is happening? When he starts reading this book of like how you basically take over and take control and become Big Brother.
Can I say
the longest chapters? I know.
I know. So check this out. I thought it was so informative.
It is.
Borderline scary. Honestly, reading this book in the United States of America in 2025 was a little terrifying. Yeah. It was a little terrifying. Oh, yeah. And in the moment where he's going through the manual, and it was giving me kind of like manifesto kind of vibes. I don't know if that's the right term.
No, it's 100%. Okay. It's the Big Brother manifesto. That's essentially what he got.
And for me, it was a lot. It was a lot. I was like, George, your brain, bro, like, so much respect.
It's basically the info dump that you get in a fantasy novel, but we made it basically to the end of part 2. We was about 200 pages deep in this book when this happens.
Yeah, and it was a chunk. I think if I remember correctly, it was like from 50% to 62% of that.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a chunk.
But to make my point here, he's like, oh, let's read this. And Julia's like, just read it to me. And then she goes to sleep. Like, she does not care enough about finding out what's going on, what's happening in the world. She just wants to hook up, find a small peace, of happiness within this world of chaos. And it's like, you know, the first time you read it, I can remember being like, oh, he's found someone. But reading it the second time, knowing what's coming around the corner, I just go, this woman is nowhere near being as ready as he is to leave this world behind.
Okay, so Julia was very interesting to me.
I hate her. Sorry. Did I say that out loud? Oops.
You did. You definitely did. Okay, so Julia was very interesting to me. I love the points that you made because I agree. I feel like, but I respected her for what it was, right? I feel like she found ways to live life on her terms in this world where that's not allowed. And I feel like she found the little pocket where it exists for herself. So she goes through the motions to not get in trouble for all the things, but she is very free sexually, which is very much not allowed, very much not encouraged. It's kind of tolerable if you turn a blind eye for men, but it's not really an option for women.
Right.
And even in that, I actually thought that she was very intelligent, but in very different ways. So like you were saying, and I agree with you, I did not like how passive and blasé she was about not knowing the details of the world and all the things like that. She's essentially being okay to like sign up for the Brotherhood of the Revolution, but is kind of like, yeah, I don't really care about the rules, I don't really care about the details, but yeah, I'm here for it. And it's just like, I feel like for her, in and of herself, her own rebellion was having sex on her own terms. And I think because she was able to do that consistently, that was her, like for her, I think she already won for herself in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, there's that scene where Winston and Julia get invited to O'Brien's house, and O'Brien basically says, I'm a part of the Brotherhood of the Rebellion, and he's making them take an oath to join the rebellion. And he says, you're gonna have to betray each other at some point, or like, would you be willing to leave each other behind? And Julia immediately panics, and she's like, no! And it's like, her concern on this whole list of pledges she's got to take is just the fact that the man that's been
servicing,
warming her sheets at night, it may or may not be left behind in the rebellion, and she's not going to do that. Meanwhile, Winston hesitated, then he said, I don't know that hoe. He said, I don't know.
What was interesting for me with Julia, and like I said, I think she was smart in different ways. I think she just found a way to like live life in this regard. What I thought was very interesting was her ability to be very geographically like aware. Like she, and before they started to go to the shop, to the room above the shop, she was the one that curated all of their locations, how to get there, how to leave, how to come, how to go, how to like, I thought that she was very intelligent and she knew how to navigate herself and her life within this regime, which I thought was very commendable.
I think it's the same way with you and I, of like, you're macro, or like you're micro, I'm macro. Like she was thinking of how to find peace within this. I don't know if I'm using these words right. It's been a while since I've had to use them. The totalitarian like regime that they were under, versus he was like, how do we break out of it completely?
Yeah. And I thought that they had different goals in that regard too. Yeah. She was just trying to live within it and like let it not consume her, versus he was like, I was fully immersed and I need to make sure no one else does that as well. So I agree. When they finally started going to the room above the shop, this is why Winston continues to irritate me. How many times was he told, y'all can't keep going, doing the same thing, same place? It's too risky.
She said, we can use the same spot twice and then we need to move on. And he said, oh, let's just make this little home above the shop.
Yes. And I just was like, that, so again, y'all know I'm like primarily a romance reader. It gave me such third act breakup vibes. Like I saw it coming and my heart was like breaking as it was happening. And until also, shut up.
Meanwhile, I was sitting here like, yo, you an idiot. I hope you ready for what's about to come, bro.
So it was very interesting to me because, so I was reading it as an audiobook, and because, especially, because at this point, this was like mid-manifesto, right? And so I had to like lock in. So literally, I was like, nothing else on. I had my video games on because I needed something to like distract me so I could focus. First of all, I got so many games in on 2K to this book, but I had to like just lock in and focus. So as soon as she got up and was like, oh, let me make some more coffee. And then she was like, oh, that's weird. The oil is gone. And he was like, oh, we'll just get more. And she was like, no, but I refilled it. Instantly felt dread in my stomach. Like instantly. I was like, something is wrong. But I didn't know like how or what. And then when the voice said like,
yep. The telescreen.
Tell me, I had to pause. I was like, oh no. Oh, like I would have started pacing if I like.
Okay,
can
we hit pause on this really quickly?
Sure.
George Orwell, wherever you may exist in the afterlife, there was no need for you to give me a textbook in the middle of a book. Okay? It was a great textbook. It was very enlightening. It was incredible to read. But that should have been an addendum in the back of the book. Give me excerpts throughout the book, but that should have been in the back of the book.
Okay, look. Okay,
you gave me an appendix.
Okay, let's explore this really quickly, though. Because of all the things that happens in the Ministry of Peace later, what parts do you think he could have left out? Like, okay, the reason why I phrase it that way is I feel like it was very informative. Like, I feel like I just learned in that moment, right? But yes. I also feel like a lot of the things had to be established in terms of, like, the whole world order and future vision so that some of the conversations make sense later on.
Which is why I'm saying give us excerpts.
Okay, as you go. Okay, yeah, okay, I see it.
This is essentially the world-building part of any fantasy book.
Yeah.
But we get it
in the middle of the book. It was literally like 50,
for reference. 50%. This is the size of the book, right? That nonsense comes in.
That comes all it nonsense.
No, because at one point I was like, I need you to understand that I literally kept going, what page am I on? Like, because I also listened to it in my headphones while I was reading it, because some of this I was like, sweetheart. That chapter starts at 159 and ends, this is how crazy it is. That chapter starts on 159 and ends on 194.
Thank you for validating that for me, because I remember while I was listening, I was like, bro, still? And then like when I finished the book and I was like, this had to be like a 450 page. It's not. And I was like, why did it feel like that?
There's so much that happened. And I almost wanted to say, George, you could have weaved that in over the span of the chapters I've been reading. Yeah. Instead of info dumping it. I'm not disregarding what he wrote, because that is, listen, the way I was in here highlighting, do y'all see these tabs? I was in here, okay?
The amount of bookmarks I got, where I was like, bookmark, and I was like, go back, bookmark, write down the quote, but like,
this is the light version. My original version had notes in every single margin. Every single margin. So I'm not discounting what he wrote, but I am saying, bro, you didn't want to fix your outline before you started writing?
Okay, so that was the end of part 2. As we're heading into part 3.
Whoa. Let's give the full picture of what happens at the end of part 2.
No, I was just about to ask a question about that. No, I just about to ask a question about that before we get in. I'm not jumping ahead. Okay. No, and I was going to ask you the question. So I have a couple questions. You mentioned that you didn't like Julia, and this is your second time reading this, and you were saying that like she was not the right partner for Winston. Now thinking back and hearing it, where she was just like, "Oh, I don't feel like reading it. Read it aloud." I don't feel like she was a plot, or she was a ploy, or she was involved with it at all. But I I feel like there was a couple things that now I look back on. There was a few misjudgments that I think she was involved in that I'm like suspicious.
Yeah. Okay, so let me put it this way.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the first time I read it, certain plot points were different, and I don't know if I made them up in my head.
Okay.
But I have a distinct memory of her being part of it, like of his takedown.
Okay.
And I know that O'Brien tells him later that she gave him up. But the timeline of when she did it is kind of unclear.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if my mind just decided that the dots were connected, that maybe she gave him up and that's how they got caught in the first place in that room, or if the telescreen was just watching them over time. But like, he was already being watched. O'Brien makes it clear, like, yo, we've been watching you for a while, bro. So I don't know. My brain really thinks that maybe she had said something before they were actually arrested.
That her betrayal was before the Ministry of Peace portion. Whew. Whew. Okay, so
just opened a whole bunch of different doors for you.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the things that made me start to be a little suspicious was Winston, who is largely an idiot in my mind. Like, he doesn't mean to be, but he's a little lost.
You can't be mad at the man. He don't know better. He's trying to figure out free thought for himself.
I know. But one of the things I thought was interesting was he was saying that he was sure that O'Brien was like a part of the cause and he had to go to him and everything like that. And then he was like, wait a minute, I have no facts to base this on. He just looked at me and I kind of thought something. And Julia...
Well, remember, he hears that whisper in his ear. I can find the quote if you give me a second.
Yeah.
But there's a whisper he hears when he looks at O'Brien, or he's like thinking at O'Brien of like, we'll meet when the sun is dark or something like that. And it's like this code phrase. So it kind of like he was building O'Brien up in his head. Like he was building the facade. So
now that I think about it, was they like talking to him through the telescreen? Is that why he was hearing these things?
Yes.
Okay.
Because
that makes more sense.
Remember,
this book made me want to unplug every single device in my house. Everything out the wall. Absolutely not.
Remember that Winston has already been having these thoughts for years. He had this kind of ideology when he was married, long before this book starts. And then his wife goes missing. AKA she died, whatever, however you want to put it.
I mean, she's not dead, but yeah, sure.
Right, because people just
they can't they weren't able to reproduce, reprocreate, they weren't able to have kids. So they were just like
procreate.
Right, procreate. Thank you. It was something with a crate at the end.
So they have already known for a while that Winston is not 100% locked in on the big brother ideas. So when Julia comes along, it's almost like an in to get him.
Okay. All right. Let me calm down. I have a question. Now I'm like, Okay. Winston. Do you feel like his job and his specific task plays into him questioning things more than the standard citizen? The reason why I say that
Absolutely.
is because his next door neighbor, who was an idiot, like, they didn't have the same job, and he was fully brought in, and he even talks about, like, yeah, I'm not the brightest, but I'm glad, like, whatever. But then his smarter friend, like, Winston was like, they gonna get rid of him because he's too smart. Like, so I was wondering if, like, Winston was always going to be a target at some point, just because his
job.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. Winston is one of the very select few that have access to the information that dispels everything that Big Brother is spewing out there.
Yeah.
I mean, he comes across this photo of the people that are alleged to have started the rebellion in the first place and caused all of the problems and the chaos. And in this photo, they're listed as some of the top highest, like, government officials, and they're basically being, like, honored or something in this photo. So it's like, if every day I'm seeing just how wrong you are, and then it's my job to make the rest of the world think something different, the only thing I can equate it to is the Wizard of Oz when Elphaba meets the wizard.
The wizard.
And she gets to see behind the curtain.
And
she
the other people still don't know, but
is,
you know. Girl. Where my offering? Yo, okay.
That's the best way to equate it, is like, he is Elphaba sitting at the desk every day, seeing behind the curtain that no one else gets to see, and he's realizing that the wizard ain't shit.
Yeah. Okay.
But
all right.
Because he's not a man of power,
can't do anything
even though
about
he
it.
can see behind the curtain, he's still going to be taken down in the end.
Yeah. So I will say this. Okay. And this is my last part about, like, part 2. One thing I thought was interesting, I still had some questions about some of the society setup during the part 2 portion that when, like, we got to the manifesto part, clarified some of that for me. So I always had questions, because he kept talking about, like, the inner party, the outer party, and then the proles, right? And so I was like, okay, I was like, it's the class divide, but I couldn't figure out, like, how it was divided and what the larger, like, differences were. I think when we go to O'Brien's house, you distinctively see some of them, because O'Brien was a part of the inner party. There's more luxury. So the house, you get a servant, you can turn your telescreen off. And I remember, like, when they did it, their reaction to me, I thought was so powerful, because it wasn't just like, it can turn off, like, it's an option. It's also just like, if you think about it, you never have peace. Like, they talk about you can never turn it off, but you can turn it down low. There's always some sounds. There's always some lights. Like, you can never have peace, and they have peace.
It's also the fact of, like, he has free will.
Who?
You have, like, O'Brien. He has the free will to turn his telescreen on and off. Which is a major separation from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Gin Pop society, not only do they not have free thought, they don't have free will. There's someone who wakes them up every morning and makes them stretch when they get out of bed. There are people watching to make sure you go to and from work on time. People are, like, he couldn't even talk to Julia in the lunchroom.
Yeah.
But O'Brien has this ability, because he's in the inner circle, to come and go as he pleases.
To move in or out, yeah.
So imagine, basically, like, this is kind of like slave mentality. So to see, like, a free person is, like, what?
Yeah, I thought that their reaction to it being turned off was, like, I feel like Julia, like, couldn't really care less. And then when she saw that, she was like, oh, there's levels to this.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
All right. Moving on. So we finish Act 2 with Julia and Winston waking up to find out that the my brain said keeper of the shop. The shopkeeper is basically an informant. He played them. There's a telescreen in this room that they've been having their little rendezvous at that's been hidden behind a painting.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so my question was it, okay, that was the part that I was confused at. Was the telescreen always there, or was it put there? Because, like I said, when they woke up and then the oil thing was missing, I had the sensation like it was put there.
I think it was always there, and, like, at the end of the day, if they were just having sex, all right, cool, it's what it is, but it's not something that, like, would warrant everything that comes in Act 3.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, because they basically use that as, like, their safe space, so they spoke freely.
Right, but once he gets the book and he starts literally reading it out loud,
yeah,
that is where chaos ensues. So Winston and Julia are arrested, and that is how we close Act 2. And Act 3 starts with them in prison. Winston has no clue how long it's been since he's been arrested. He has no idea what time of day it is, what's going on. People from his life are now showing up in prison. His neighbor got turned in by his own daughter, which a lot of this is giving Nazis, your own neighbors were turning you in type energy. His coworker, who he said was too smart, got turned in because he chose to leave the word God in a rhyme, because he said, do you know how hard it is to rhyme with the word rod? There's like 23 words that you could rhyme with it, okay? I did what I had to do artistically.
Yeah.
And so then there's like a woman who's brought in that kind of resembles his mother, but there's no real confirmation. It's all this crazy stuff. And then O'Brien shows up. What were your thoughts when it's revealed that O'Brien is not actually a part of the rebellion? He was put into position to snatch up Winston.
Okay.
Uh-oh. It's whenever you pause and go, okay.
Okay, so the O'Brien reveal was odd to me because I still foolishly, like Winston, believed that he was actually still a part of the rebellion. It was in the inner party and was placed there.
You thought he was going to show up with the razor blade for him?
No. Okay, so by the time he was like, he can still be the razor blade in my food. And by the time we got to that part, I was like, bro, you got. There ain't nobody coming. But O'Brien, like the O'Brien reveal initially, I was like, what? And then I was like, nah, he must still be at play with something. They got people everywhere. And then as it kept going on, I was like, I think bro got. Like,
you got.
Yeah. Okay, so O'Brien. And I guess this is one of my questions, right? How/why did O'Brien have like a regular desk job, but then also had like this war Ministry of Peace job, and like he was there for a long time with Winston? So
Jay, if I tell you I'm a spy, you're not gonna do anything incriminating. If you don't know I'm a spy.
So you're saying is like O'Brien was like sent to get Winston.
He's like sent to get Winston, but also he's just there to get people. I mean,
because he's the thought police. I don't know why that just clicked in my mind. He's at work trying to catch.
He showed up to his desk job because his desk job is to get you. He the hall monitor.
When they say don't trust nobody, don't trust nobody. Okay.
Can't trust these hoes.
Okay. Okay, so that's my question then too. So then do you think, or not do you think, but so do you think like O'Brien sent Julia and then they collaborated?
Okay, so that's what my brain remembered. Okay. So now I really need to find my original copy to see if maybe I just missed a piece while listening to it this time around. And you just inferred
that and ran with it versus it being concrete?
Yeah, because like, for those of y'all who haven't read this book and are just truly intrigued by our retelling of this book, there are a lot of like symbolism and metaphors and like deep within the words, hidden messages. So it almost feels like, I swear in my brain, Julia and O'Brien were working together to get Winston. But then Julia is also held captive and ruined.
Is she though?
Well, because when he sees her at the end, so spoiler alert, he gets free. They let him go.
Yeah.
He runs into her at like a park, and he says there's like a scar now that runs along her temple and her forehead.
Okay.
And her whole body is different now. She's thicker. Her skin is different. Everything about her is so different. Okay. And even she is a whole different person. Like, it's almost like they snuffed the light out of her.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So I don't think she was sent there from the beginning to take him out, but
But
I
I think
do
they
think
used
she
her.
in the end snitched on him.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. That. Oh man. That Ministry of Peace portion was it was honestly, I'm not even kidding, it was really, really hard for me to read, just to kind of hear how deep the evil could go. Like that was the part that like hurt my heart. And then, like I said, some of the things that was really terrifying to read it in modern day America was these are similar things that we're seeing and hearing being implemented today. So it was hard. It was hard for me to stomach it. It wasn't hard for me to read it. Like,
this book,
absorbing the information, but it was just hard for me to stomach it.
I'm holding the 75th anniversary edition of this book. So think about how long ago that book was written.
It was written 49, right?
Don't ask me to do math right now. I can't even speak.
I think, let me double check. I think it was written in the 40s. And I tried to remember, like keep that in mind while I was reading.
But the fact that it was written so long ago.
What was the year of the book again? Wait, what's the name of the title?
1984. Sorry, I was reading a different year and then my brain just forgot. But for it to still apply is one of the craziest things in this world.
1949. Yo, why did I know that exactly? That's crazy. Okay, but yes, I tried to remind myself while reading it, like this was written in the 40s. The 40s.
But I think what's insane and so powerful about that final act is the way Winston stands tall in his truth, even as they are literally trying to shock it out of him.
Yeah.
They are doing electrode therapy on his brain to force him to be a part of the regime. And he goes, no, 2 + 2 still equals 4. Which, for those of y'all who haven't read the book, it's a very important line in the book. I swear I didn't just say nonsense. But I think as much as you want to be mad at Winston for falling for all of this and being stupid, that final section, that's a strong character right there.
No, I had a lot of respect for Winston after that moment. Like, not after that moment, but like, I had a lot of respect for Winston going through the Ministry of Peace. Like, a lot of respect for him. Because essentially, like, the thing he said he would never do in terms of the betrayal, he held on to that for a long time. A long time. And as soon as they were talking about like how
together.
Right. And as soon as they were talking about like how like, oh, every man has their limits, some things are worse than other things, I knew immediately what they were going to use on him, that like all the other tortures weren't going to use. I knew immediately what they were going to use, and I was like, oh, dang.
I think the last chapter is my favorite, and that is the tables have turned. He is now at this, they call it a cafe. It's basically a bar because he's drinking gin every day.
Before we jump out of the Ministry of Peace, one thing I want to say about like that imprisonment portion of it, something I thought was very interesting is that they basically broke down Winston physically to break down his mind. Like, that's standard. You do that all the time. You do it with animals. Like they say, that's how you break a horse, whatever. Like, so what I thought was interesting is that they broke him down physically. He still really wasn't breaking down mentally. And then they showed him how weak and feeble he was physically. And then that kind of started to show a couple cracks mentally. Saying all that to say is that I knew that they were actually going to be releasing him soon is when they started to build him back up physically.
When they started feeding him 3 times
because he only has
3
value.
Meals a time.
Yeah. He only has value to the society if he's going back into this labor force that they've talked about in the book. Like in the manifesto portion. So I'm just like, when they started to feed him, I was like, oh, they're going to let him go eventually because they're reacclimating him. And again, I just thought to like modern day prison systems. And I just thought the similarities were crazy. So, and I thought it was interesting because it's not just stuff that they were doing, but it's also stuff that he started doing on his own in those moments, right? You're in solitary confinement. You have a lot of time on your hands. He literally
started working out.
He said, I started working out. Like, not even because, like, I wanted to, but just, like, I should. And it's just, like, he's also going back to the default setting of how they trained him when he was in society initially, which is you wake up, you do your workouts, you do the things. And then I thought it was also interesting for him, just like as a man, to being like, the things I thought I could and should do easily, I was very humbled by I couldn't. And that also was his own like motivation to keep doing the thing until he could do it. And so it was just very, very interesting. Like again, book written in late 40s and how it's still relevant in terms of whatever. And then so then they finally ended up letting him go and he returns back to society. Cafe.
Yes, and he ends up in this cafe that he had actually visited at the beginning of this entire book. And it was so crazy to see the like full circle moment of the first time he ever was there. He watched people get arrested and taken out. They were hauled out of there. And now he's in their position, hearing the exact same song and being brought to tears just like them. And it's like, it's literally moving chess pieces on the board, which is what he's doing in that moment. And I just went, yo, George, take your foot off my neck, bro. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
I can't handle anymore, but I get it. It is so poignant. Like, they're announcing this victory where Oceania has won the battle in Africa. They now have taken over that whole continent. And he's like, I should be out in the streets cheering and celebrating with everyone else. But he still remembers life before all of this. He even has a memory in that moment, and he tries to tell himself it's not real. But he knows deep down. He literally can't even pick up the chess piece anymore because he knows what's real and what's not. But he just can't fight the fight anymore.
Yeah. The psychology of the mind element in this was, again,
insane.
Yes. I read this book and some of my thoughts weren't even about like the characters and whatever. It was just such respect for George and the intellect that he must have held, because he had all of this information on some level, some regard, research, whatever, and was able to tell a story, create a world where all of these things were inside of it, with all of these layers, like you were talking about, like the little symbolism, like all of these layers. And there's still multiple layers. Like, even while we've been doing this, I was like, wait, what? Like, there's still multiple layers. There's still so many levels of symbolism. Like, the level of psychology and sociology, those degree of things that are thrown throughout the book as well. Not even talking about, like, the physical restraints and, like, no, the psychological warfare that they have throughout the entire book. Like, the level of class structure that they purposely have, it swaps at a specific time to give people hope to continue to do it. And those at the top,
he says,
they want the pendulum to go and then stop. And I was just like, yeah. Like,
he literally wrote, so as long as they are not permitted to have standards of comparison, they'll never become aware that they are oppressed.
Yes.
And that's exactly how it is.
Yes.
Technically, there's not really a class system to, like, separate people. There are the paroles or whatever. Basically, all the people who know what life was like before and are just kind of shoved to the outside of society because you can't just mass murder people in this world. It's shocking. And then you have society, and then you have the controlling government at the top. There's no true I'm better than you standard in there.
One of the quotes that O'Brien said, which I thought was, I wrote it down because it was great. He says, an idea is indestructible. And I thought that was so interesting because we talk, like, the whole book is set around the concept of thought crime. And like you said, there's no free will. You really can't think for yourself. Like, and the whole purpose of, what is it called? The Newspeak Dictionary. Their entire purpose of creating new language that removes words so that even if you have a thought, you can't articulate it. So you can't spread that to even spark a potential revolution.
So would this be a bad time to ask you to rate this book?
I can't stand you. Okay. So I thought about my rating. Okay. Reading experience, Come on. Okay, so
You're doing
reading
so damn good.
experience for me is a 2. I think it dragged a lot for me, but I learned a lot from it. This, honestly, us talking it through on the podcast makes me now want to reread it because I know everything that happened. I can read it through with all the gaps, like the final answers filled in. But initially I was like, I won't reread this, but now it makes me kind of want to. So reading experience for me was a 2. However, book information, what I gleaned from it, for me that's
what is your overall rating?
So I think I'm gonna split the difference. I'm gonna rate it a 3.
Whatever math works for you, my friend. Whatever math works for you.
I think it's a 3. I mean, I think in terms of like the literature that it is, the level written is a 5, but I didn't really like enjoy it. But I think it's an important piece of work. Reading it, even in the very beginning, I instantly understood why it was challenged, and it's sad to me that we're in a society where things like this are challenged and removed versus accepted and learned from. But like you said, George stood on everybody's neck with this book.
I'm gonna keep this sweet and simple. It's a 5. It's a 5.
Okay.
It's not supposed to be read in the same context as like Ella Gets the D. So that like reading for enjoyment experience is gonna be different. I'm not saying you can't read it for enjoyment, but I think you can't turn to CNN and hope you get an ABC sitcom. It just don't work that way. So
valid, yes.
For the quote unquote channel I was on, 5 out of 5. No notes. George did your thing. I'm happy.
I like that perspective. I'm changing mine to a 4.
All right.
I like that.
We done gained a star.
No, because like it's very well written. It's very well written. I just didn't enjoy the reading process of it, but that's not his fault. It's not, like, you're right, it's not that type of book. So for me, it's a 4. It's a 4 because I've always said like the writing, like the book itself, 4, but because of the reading experience, I was like 2 and then in the middle. But nah, you're right, it's a 4. It's a 4.
Wow, I think that's a first where I have changed your mind about a rating.
No, like even, I mean, you guys live discovered me discovering things as we were talking this through.
Here's what I'll say to y'all as we wrap this up. If you have not read this book, give it a shot.
Read it.
Audiobook. Audible has a scripted version of it with Andrew Garfield, Cynthia Erivo, and Tom Hardy playing the characters.
I did see that, yeah.
That at least will give you the entertainment value you might be looking for, with still giving you the important pieces of this book. Jay and I did not discuss this beforehand, but I am going to dedicate this to my advanced English professor. Well, teacher. It was high school. Andrea Murphy, may she rest in peace, but she's the person who made me read this and Fahrenheit 451 in the same summer. So if you wonder why I'm the crazy person that I am, it is her fault. So yeah, thanks for watching with us, guys. Thanks for listening. Take care of you, and we will see y'all in the next one. Peace.
Bye.